And the spiritual warfare is this frustration that begins to take place in your heart and in your mind. You're looking at your finances and you're noticing something changed. Fear comes in. Oh my God, I'm not gonna make it. Lord, where are you? You're looking and the people that you really relied on, they're gone. And you feel alone. And that's why the first chapter of Joshua, God keeps telling Joshua this one word. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Only be courageous. Can somebody drop that in the chat? No fear. No fear. No fear. Come on, somebody. Drop a hashtag in the chat. No fear. Why does God allow that? So that you will depend on Him and so that there will be no fear. No fear of the future. No fear of finances. No fear of being alone, because you're never really alone. You're with God. No fear. No fear. Somebody dropped it in the chat. We will not live in fear. We will live in faith. See, in order to walk in spiritual warfare, you must walk in faith. You must walk in faith. You must combat fear. Before Joshua fought Jericho, Joshua had to fight fear. A lot of people, what they don't realize is the demons are not the problem. For many of us, the nightmares are not the problem. For many of us, it's not the spirit spouse that we're battling with. We're battling with fear. The fear of problems coming back. The fear of problems never changing. The fear of our life never improving. That fear, my friend, is worse. Because that fear paralyzes your ability to move forward. People in the promised land that Joshua conquered, before he conquered them, you know who conquered them? Paranoia, fear. They were so afraid that they closed up. They already were defeated. If you want to walk in spiritual victory, you must understand fear has to be illegal. You have to get fear out of your life. The devil will use your circumstances. He will use the exit of Moses and he will use the exit of manna to bring the entrance of fear. When manna and Moses leaves, fear will stand at the door and say, I'm here. I'm going to replace Moses and I'm going to replace manna. And I'm here to tell somebody, punch the fear in the face. I'm here to tell somebody, do not be afraid because God is with you. Do not be afraid because the Red Sea will split in front of you. Do not be afraid because the Jericho walls will fall. Do not be afraid because the best days are ahead of you. Do not be afraid because God is on the move. Do not be afraid because He has never abandoned you. He has never forsaken you, and God is your provider. Do not be afraid because in place of manna, God will prepare milk. Do not be afraid because in the place of Moses, He will raise you up to be the general and to be the leader of His people. Do not be afraid. You might not have a rod of Moses, but you have the Ark of the Covenant. Do not be afraid because the same God who split the Red Sea is the same God who will split Jordan. Do not be afraid because He will provide for your needs according to His riches and His glory. Do not be afraid because your destiny is not tied to those that exited your life. Your destiny is connected to those that stayed and to God who will never abandon you and never leave you. His name is Emmanuel. No fear. Why? Because He is with me. No fear. Why? Because He is on my side. So spiritual warfare. I must advance when I feel like I'm shrinking, when I feel like people are leaving, when I feel like the finances are slipping away. I must advance. I must move forward. Somebody dropped that in the chat. Advance, not retreat. Drop that in the chat. You must advance, not retreat. If Moses exited your life, advance. Don't retreat. If manna left your life, advance. Don't retreat. Maybe because of this COVID, you lost your business. Maybe because of this COVID, you lost your customers. Maybe because of this COVID, you lost some friends. Maybe the people that you relied on, they're no longer there in your life. And you feel an attack right now of fear. You feel an attack of anxiety. You feel an attack of chronic timidity. You feel paralyzed. Your heart is melting. Not like wax in the presence of God, but like you're unsure, you're confused. The word of the Lord for you today. Don't be afraid. Why? Because your enemy is terrified of you. And therefore you should not be terrified of your enemy or your circumstances. Drop that in the chat. Don't be afraid because your enemy is terrified. You don't need to be terrified. You are transformed. You are new. You are righteousness of Christ. Fear has no place. Why fear has no place? Because you fear God. And the fear of God destroys every other fear. You know what I fear? I fear God. And therefore I shouldn't fear my circumstances. Come on, drop that in the chat. If you're watching or rewatching, do not be afraid, only fear God. Do not be afraid, only fear God. I really feel strongly in my spirit right now. There are people that are watching and rewatching this. You've entered into a new season, but you honestly feel like God has abandoned you. You don't realize actually you're closer to the promises of God than you've ever been. You don't realize you're closer. And how I know you're closer? Because it's harder. Certain people exited your life. Certain things exited your life. But now you have fear knocking on the door and says you won't make it. The walls can't be penetrated. You don't have a plan. You don't have a degree. You don't have a strategy. You have no place to live. You have no connections. You're alone. You're just going to be a single mom. You're going to be a single dad. You're going to be a person with a divorce on your record. You're going to be a person with a bankruptcy on your record. You won't have enough. You won't make it. And I came here today to punch fear right in the face and to expose every fear and to tell you that fear masquerades as wisdom. Fear masquerades as caution. Fear masquerades as common sense. Fear masquerades as be a realist. You know what? Just think clearly about life. Don't rely on your faith. Fear is a liar. Fear is false evidence appearing real. Fear is mocking your faith. Fear is mocking your God. Fear is mocking your future. Fear is mocking your prayer life. And therefore you have to come out and you have to destroy, shred, break free from that fear, because the enemy is terrified. I want the enemy to be afraid of me. I don't want to be afraid of the future. I don't want to be afraid of driving. Some of you, you're afraid of getting married. There are people, you're afraid of driving. You're afraid of getting sick. Listen, get rid of that fear right now. Shake that thing off in Jesus' mighty name. God has not given you a spirit of fear, but spirit of power, spirit of love, and spirit of sound mind. Come on, somebody, drop that fire emoji if you believe that God has not given you a spirit of fear. Don't be afraid, only fear God. It's interesting because the moment Joshua got his courage, the moment Joshua got his strength, the moment God infused Joshua with courage, something happened with Joshua. The Bible says, the Bible describes that the nation and nations in the land of Canaan were terrified. And guess what happened? They all got defeated, because whoever is afraid is already defeated. Whoever is afraid is already defeated.